Call of Duty Vanguard. I haven't talked about it since it was confirmed a while back, and now the Champion Hill demo is live. Only for PlayStation, sadly. Had to boot up my old alpha machine for some terribly out of practice gameplay. I'm just awful, I apologize. But let's finally talk all about Vanguard. Thoughts so far? Could start all the way back with that Warzone reveal where we shot a train. Outcome. The joke writes itself. Yeah, it felt a little forced as a Warzone event. Like, why is this happening in the Verdansk flashback? Why are we doing this? Now we're being bombed? Alright, well, I guess it was fine. I don't have any better ideas for what it should have been as just a way to advertise the trailer to Warzone players. Fair enough. And then that single player trailer seemed impressive, although it does seem like another over-the-top action movie type of World War II campaign. Not so much the depressing reality style World War II standard soldier storytelling. That's bound to be a turnoff for many, but I'll go in with those expectations, and I'm sure I'll enjoy recording the good old playthrough at some point. I do understand that they want to make a more varied campaign from a gameplay perspective than just this is what it was like to be a soldier, so they're doing this special ops thing, and I don't see it as disrespectful. Sure, I get it, could be fun. Before getting off the campaign topic, more recently they released some gameplay of the Stalingrad summer mission at Gamescom. I'll be linking everything, of course, you can go react for yourself. I'd say it showed off some rather brutal visuals and excellent audio design, but this kind of thing doesn't really give me any hype personally to just watch some pretty scripted moments play out. I know with COD campaigns it's going to be on rails. I wasn't looking for open world, and I also know to expect some unrealistic stuff, but the whole time it seemed like absurd things were happening, I'm sorry. And I was detracting from the otherwise very serious atmosphere. This is a terrible real-life event, but oh crap, bombers, better take cover on the roof. I can't wait for a call of convenient bricks, man. Who the hell is this lazy Soviet bricklayer, and why has he not been put to death? I know they made the climbing mechanic, so they need to use it, get their value out of it. I know it's just video game logic, telegraph where to climb, but man, they really stick out. No pun intended. It does contribute to the feeling of silliness. Oh no, she's in danger. I hope there's a lucky brick to grab. Oh, sorry, there's a little cluster of 50 here. We're good. No, wait, the bricks are falling off the wall now, and there aren't any holes left behind. They don't even line up, so they weren't actually sticking out of the wall. Someone just gorilla glued them on there.
Even this heavy brick is gonna stick.
My bad, it makes sense now. Well, I don't have much to actually say about the campaign. I'm just having fun joking. Someone's gonna be like, you'll find anything to complain about. You're mad about bricks? I'm not mad about bricks, it's just fun. Okay, how about the thing that's actually out right now? The Champion Hill demo. This is their new evolution of the gunfight style mode. It's like a mini face-off tournament with some Warzone loot mechanics. You play timed rounds where you try to deplete the enemy team's lives. When time's up, you get matched up against another team to try to deplete their lives. You can pick up drops and cash around the map to upgrade your loadout. If you fully eliminate a team, you get all their stuff, and you'll mainly spend that cash in the buy round on plenty of upgrades. There are 8 total teams to outlast to be the winner. Had some fun with it. I think a main gripe with how it's designed with the timed rounds. It seems like staying alive is far more important than getting kills, making it more campy. I guess similar to a lot of BRs, unless there's enough of a snowball effect encouraging aggression and upgrades. I know you may get a bit less cash, but you'll probably end up winning the round that way and get the bonus. And if you're playing super defensive, holding on to your lives as priority 1, you can kind of let everyone else wear away each other's lives in their matches and go into every match with a life advantage, and then maybe end up getting some final eliminations, take all someone's stuff. That might be counterbalanced by the game matching people up based on how many lives they have left. It might have also been random or based on some kind of performance, can't say for sure. Either way, being a defensive ass, hiding and sneaking just seems like the way to do it. For that reason, I think I prefer the simplicity of gunfight. Just lots of fair rounds. It's more purely about skill, strategy, and teamwork, where you fight until you defeat the enemy team that you're matched up against, because there's no other way to win, with a flag at the end of the round to force movement. I get why the timer is needed here, for it to keep moving along at the same pace for every team, having no long waits, because that's what can happen to the regular gunfight tournaments. You often just wait around for your next match to be ready. So I appreciate what they built here. It's an interesting idea to add complexity to what you buy and upgrade with the cash. It's a mix of a whole bunch of different concepts, and I know there are the extra life tokens in each arena to encourage some movement. If you go out there and take map control, you can get that free life, plus more cash. If this is being compared to Gunfight though, then I think I just prefer the design of Gunfight, where you play to defeat the enemy instead of half playing the timer. But maybe some people like the extra layer of the cash. Anyway, either way with this mode, I know come release I'll be solo most of the time, so I doubt I'll be playing it very much, just like Gunfight, which I thought was pretty fun, but not so much solo. As far as some of the gear we saw, they put out a list of it, mostly the standard. Interesting that the throwing knife says it's only lethal to the body or head now, and they're finally doing away with the knife in the toe equals instant death joke. I don't think that needed to happen, like it's already the risk-reward equipment, but okay, if they want it to be even more of a skill equipment. Pretty sad for anyone trying to get a cross-map throwing knife and getting a hit marker now. We saw some perks, got a lot copied over from Modern Warfare. It makes sense with the Warzone integration, I guess. But Ghost does only work while moving. Very important detail there. And some streaks, the most interesting being the V2 Rocket, a straight-up match-ending streak that can be bought in Champion Hill if you somehow build up the cash to get it. A neat mechanic if you're good enough to save up the whole time instead of upgrading. And they've said the V2 will also be earnable in regular multiplayer. No doubt a big gun streak. Will it be match-ending there too, though? Sounds like maybe so. Maybe you'd have to select it as a streak in that case. Very interesting. Gun balance, I don't feel is important enough to comment on this early, and I'm not experienced enough to. Time to kill seems fast, but the bar seemed ridiculous. Like, it seemed to be getting 2-shot kills sometimes. Whenever that was available, it was a must-buy. You could also see quite the variety of attachments when upgrading your weapons. I know that puts some people off, like seeing all the different red dots and elos. Yeah, not very accurate to see on weapons for World War II, but that really isn't a sticking point to me. They have the gunsmith, they were obviously going to for the Warzone tie-in, so they're going to come up with a wide range of attachments for it, and a lot of it is not going to be very realistic. It is sad whenever they don't seem to care in the slightest about giving a Magnum a 12-round extended mag, and I can appreciate when they get a detail right, as opposed to absurdly wrong, but it is a COD. I'm going to care more about the gameplay, because you know they're going to sell anime bundles and dumb guns that look like planes. It's just going to happen. I mean, Champion Hill isn't realistic combat either. Zombies isn't very realistic. The campaign accuracy does matter a bit more to me. Like, I'd hope they pay proper respect to World War II, and it can be a bit of an eye roll to see some of those action sequences and very implausible events. But even with that, the small things aren't what's going to bother me, like how you wouldn't find an MP43 or 44 in the bombing of Stalingrad a year before those existed. That's not what's going to break my immersion. It was never about immersion for me to begin with, sorry. But you could care much more about that than I do, and that's totally fair. Back to gameplay then, aside from the Champion Hill mode, how about the general feel? First of all, my feelings are going to be thrown off by only being on controller for 1 day a year on a slightly glitchy PS4, but movement feels good. It's completely Modern Warfare-esque, as you'd expect, knowing that we've gone back to that engine, and as much as I did not enjoy many decisions Modern Warfare made, the engine isn't the problem. It looks good, feels good, and I think with all the continuous integration they're trying to pull off, it really should feel similar to Warzone, for it to make sense transitioning between the two games. Surely it's less work to maintain it, too. Cold War being different was weird for sure, maybe a product of who knows how difficult of a development cycle, so I do think it's good that we're back to this. However, that seems to have come with a bunch of features that I really didn't need to see come back. I'm neutral on the tac sprint. I know it's a more annoying and tiring thing on controller, and I kind of just forgot it existed when playing, but it is in Warzone of course, so I suppose having it makes sense. The minimap though, man, it looks like it's back to where you don't show up as a red dot even when firing unsuppressed, which tends to not encourage as much movement. At least it doesn't combo with the campy version of Ghost. And I get that maybe that's done to encourage more gunsmith variety, not feeling like you need to have a suppressor, and allowing them to make suppressors that don't punish range, like the old tradition. Well, that's a thing, but it did sound like that could be changed with enough respectful feedback about it. They said they'd be listening, so if you want that changed, be nice and be heard. But yeah, we'll see. It's not my favorite thing, but was never the biggest pain point for me. And then there's also the good old mounting, which was also never my biggest complaint, but yeah, a little annoying, especially when everyone was encouraged to do it with all the camos. And now it's been expanded upon into the blind firing. Sounded very concerning, but it's kind of hard to find the opportunity to blind fire. I wasn't used to where I had to stand to get the option, but it's like mounting, where you just immediately start hip firing around a corner. It doesn't seem to be true blind firing. They made it sound like you'd expose even less of yourself than mounting, which doesn't seem to be the case, but more actual testing would be needed to clearly see what it looks like on different cover. I really don't think this mechanic was needed at all, but it seems to be not as annoying as it sounded. Quickly hopping around a corner seems probably more effective still. I don't know, if you're gonna add a mechanic, I'd hope it adds something to the gameplay pacing and doesn't lead to any rage-inducing cheap deaths, but we'll see how that situation evolves and what people think. I'm looking forward to getting the 50 blind fire sniper kills camo challenge. A quick thing that I assume there'll be enough feedback about to change. I've already seen it everywhere. When you get shot, the visibility, which was already not great, becomes terrible. This was a thing in early Modern Warfare as well. It just gets super dark, and it may be realistic to be completely disoriented when you're getting shot, but for gameplay, it's a terrible feeling to go blind and have little chance as soon as you start taking damage. I hope that gets toned down and visibility gets worked on. I've seen some amount of glow on character models at range sometimes, like I think they've added that to Warzone, but it could always be better, and yeah, I'm sure the bright skins they're gonna sell will help out a bit too. And part of this might also be that Champion Hill is set at evening or something. It might all feel a little brighter and better on a sunnier map. They've also introduced some destructible environment elements, not full-scale battlefield type stuff, but certain walls, weak spots, boarded up windows, and maybe even some trees when it comes to the new Vanguard Warzone map. Maybe that feature will fit Warzone better than Core COD. It's another thing that I'll have to wait and see how it's used everywhere. It seems pretty limited, which I think is good. I know there are some tactical gameplay possibilities with breaking open a spot in a wall, but this isn't Siege. It's not that tactical of a game pacing-wise. Same with how all of the mounting mechanics, which might have been intended for tactically moving around, peeking each corner before you enter, actually just turned into a low-effort camper tool. I don't know, I do hope it's fairly limited and just means there'll be some map knowledge in knowing what can open up. It feels to me like this is the doors feature of this game. Modern Warfare loved talking about their doors. You can bash the doors, peek the doors, you're gonna love these doors. But then it just ends up being kinda not necessary. Even adding doors to remakes like Crash, and maybe here they're gonna be boarding up doorways and windows just so that you can break them down. I don't know, even if it's a gimmick, it sounds cooler than doors, at least I think, and definitely can look nice to have environments react more convincingly to explosions, plus the dynamic lighting and all that. Beyond the actual destructible stuff though, it could be hard to take any cover on these Champion Hill maps, which makes wanting to move difficult. Not being able to really push cover to cover. If someone's got FMJ on their gun, there is no hiding from it. Plus, those little player indicator dots can often appear above enemies' heads to give people away, even when they're solidly behind something. It was frequent and very noticeable. That feature has to be toned down. I even got a couple high alert warnings from people who were still behind walls. So that's a pretty painful combo of paper cover and seeing people through the cover. Oh yeah, and the insta-death spawn on this map is absurd. Well, those are some things that came to mind. It's not a complete list of every bit of feedback, but I know people's Reddit suggestions and maybe Twitter are most likely what's really being monitored by devs. So if you've got something to say, go contribute that feedback. That's what a demo or an alpha like this is all about. Don't be the overly protective weirdo we see every year with the stop complaining, it's gonna change, it's just an alpha. Yeah, it's an alpha, bro. Giving feedback about what you'd like to see worked on is the literal point. I'll also link the actual feedback and bug reporting form below, which might be the best way to submit directed, respectful feedback. Alright, I think I'll move away from Champion Hill gameplay stuff, and let's go through a few of the main Vanguard bullet points I've seen over the past little while. I don't follow leaks very closely at all, I'll just mainly cover what's been said. Like map count, they've loved putting emphasis on them having 20 multiplayer maps at launch, but that does actually break down to 16 for what they call the core experience, and then 4 maps for this Champion Hill face-off mode, which I assume is the 4 arenas we're playing in here, even though it's technically one big map to not have any load times. Regardless, 16 core maps is the gold standard of map count at launch. That's matching the old Modern Warfare trilogy before map count went on a gradual downward slide for the past decade, getting below double digits in the past few years. So of course it's great to get back to 16. You could say quality versus quantity, and yeah, obviously quality matters, but I feel like that as an argument hardly applies, because the amount of time that goes into detailing a map isn't really what's going to decide if I like the map or not. The layout and philosophy is. So I think having more is better for a better chance at liking some of them. I mean, I can just look at if I've liked the maps in the past few years when we haven't had too many. So I think hearing 16 maps is a good thing. I do still have questions about what the core experience means. People might hear that and be thinking, 16 core maps, that means all for 6v6, TDM, and DOM. Alright. But what they call the core experience surely includes another ground war style mode. Given some of the images, it seems like that's pretty darn guaranteed. And then who knows if some of the 6v6 maps are cropped out sections of those ground war maps, like Cold War's Armada and Crossroads Strike versions. I'm not so hyped about the ground war mode anymore personally. I don't find that pacing and layout fun. But I would be hyped for another iteration of war mode, of course. I'll always be championing that, having unique objectives where you progress through the map, as well as having rules that incentivize it being all about playing the objective, getting the win, XP reward-wise, and also not tracking KD in the mode. All that just making it really fun to play the objective and win. I find the progressive, unique objectives so much more engaging. I do not care at all about capturing DOM flags back and forth. It's just not interesting. And I honestly liked war being only 6v6, or maybe up to 12v12. I like feeling like I can have an impact as a solo player or a small party. Ground war might sound epic, but I don't know if any higher would actually be better. I know they did do that mode in World War II, but I think it was just 9v9. Anyway, yeah, I'd love to see a war mode. And imagine if it were free from the hellish matchmaking drama too. I'd be in heaven. But I wonder if they're ever going to try that mode again, because in World War II, I know the mode has its passionate supporters, but everyone seemed to be saying only 9 maps. What the hell? Just gonna pretend those 3 big operations don't exist because they're not interested in them. And fair enough, I guess. 9 wasn't a lot to satisfy the people who weren't into war. But for me, there were 3 maps because war was all I wanted to play. And I hated seeing that 9 maps complaint because surely that sends a message to the devs that the work you put into this mode was not well spent. If this many people don't appreciate or even recognize it, well, I guess it's better to put that time into regular maps instead. I think, ideally, maybe parts of a war map could be repurposed into well-balanced 6v6 maps, like the ground war cropping thing, but I recognize the difficulty there. Oh well, hearing 16 maps, whatever they're for, does sound good, and should help alleviate some of those feelings of COD being a shell of a game that needs to be drip-fed and fixed up into a complete game by the end of the year. Honestly though, map count, and things like gun count too, they are important, but they're a smaller part of it to me. More importantly, there's also the level of bugginess, level of polish, level of care. Is there a way to clear the green dot new item indicator, or do we have to wait until May for that? And then of course, I care most about what progression systems are in place. We know that seasonal content will continue in terms of battle events, modes, and maps, but I need to see what the challenges and prestige stuff is like. How samey is it gonna feel to the stuff that I've not so much enjoyed in the past 2 years? What will there be in the base game as far as long-term aspirational content and goals? To move on from that, I saw them mention what sounds like a good thing to me, combat pacing options for multiplayer. There's standard pacing, which is what we're used to, tactical, which sounds like it could be replacing hardcore mode, where it has fewer people and what sound like hardcore rules. Maybe that'll be for the people who want to blind fire around holes in the wall and sit in corners. The good old tactical Modern Warfare joke. But then there's the blitz pacing option, where they pack a lot of players into the map for some intense chaos. That sounds like it could be a good solution for the grind crowd, the people who might just want to live on shipment 24/7 to get some unlocks to take into Warzone or work on some camos, but I have no insight on how that blitz option is going to work. Hopefully not as simple as a 12v12 on a regular map size, like old school ground war, but it sounds like a good concept to me. A quick mention for the zombies, not much is official about it yet, but we know Treyarch is running it and doing a prologue to Cold War's Dark Ether story. I like the sound of that. I did enjoy many gameplay elements of the Cold War zombies. The amount of round-based maps definitely felt lacking with only the one at launch and then a big dry streak after Firebase Z, but I know the Cold War dev cycle was a rough one. I think regardless of whether or not this current Treyarch zombies is your favorite, I think it's great that they're continuing with what they've built to some extent for once, instead of needing to rebuild a ton of the most basic mechanics. Like if Sledgehammer needed to spend their dev time building up another zombies mode of their own, separate from what Treyarch's doing. I know World War II Zombies had its fans, maybe you wish we got more of that, but I don't want to see a bunch of effort going into thinking up change for the sake of change and refixing old issues, have half a year of ironing out their attempt at the mode, so let's start with what we've already got for once, and just do some innovating and have more resources to put into more content. I like the sound of that. I'm sure moving over to the Modern Warfare engine has its own challenges, and it's not like I'm expecting drastically more content, like they've been busy with Cold War, and this could explain some of the drought there. I'm definitely interested in what the Treyarch team will be cooking up there, seeing as how Cold War Zombies was the saving grace of the game for me. Let's see it. It's a similar thought to how we're returning to the Modern Warfare engine to match up with Warzone. Let's stick with that for a while. Hopefully spend less dev effort maintaining all these different systems. I like the sound of Treyarch handling the zombies, having Sledgehammer focused on their campaign and multiplayer, so mostly just multiplayer now, and Ravensoft mostly handling Warzone, whether you think they're doing a great job or not, with a handful of support studios too. I'm just glad it sounds like the dev studios don't need to split their attention as much. I wonder if that'll result in any noticeable difference. So maybe final point to mention, there's the Warzone stuff. Haven't been big into it this past year, but a brand new map is coming at last. I know that's always risky, people might hate it and want the old back, but to me it's a much needed new feel for Warzone. And then there's the even more much needed anti-cheat system. It does feel a little lame for them to have waited for this moment of trying to build hype for Vanguard to break silence on the anti-cheat situation, just left the suffering player base in the dark for a while there. We banned some more accounts, guys, but also I'm sure there's been tons of work going on behind the scenes on what is hopefully a truly effective machine learning anti-cheat system. I know it's no simple task. They could have maybe been a bit more transparent on that being worked on. Of course, can't tell the cheaters exactly what you're doing, but it does feel weird that it's a part of hyping up their next game. Like Warzone being playable is a big selling point here. Yeah, I don't know. I see both sides. The cheating problem is obviously very complex and needed a ton of work. Hopefully it does its job. Guess that's all there is to say now. Hope it's a revolutionary anti-cheat that doesn't get developed around 2 weeks after it drops. We will see. Alright, in terms of an overall Vanguard impression, how I'm feeling about it right now after playing the alpha, which felt fine. It's good. But believe it or not, I have somewhat functioning memory, and there is a positive side to that. Like, I see this, and I can't help but remember the fun I had with post-rework COD World War II, the war mode, the progression, some of the most fun I've had with a recent-ish COD. So I can't help but see another Sledgehammer World War II game and think, what if this could be fun like that? I want to be hyped. I don't want to be a whiner. I just want to have fun. But then there's the other part of having a memory, where I see the pattern of what I've not enjoyed out of the past 2 years. Mainly the fakeness feeling of the manipulative matchmaking that they can't talk about, combined with the growing massive emphasis on bundles. It's what everyone cares about, apparently. It's the focus of every weekly update post, and that translates to a lack of fun stuff to work towards and earn. And those two things together could make it feel like another shell of a game to me, a carefully disguised vehicle to sell you skins. That's the main concern. The past 2 years have laid out a clear trend that I don't see suddenly breaking. Not like selling cosmetics is unique to COD in the slightest. There will always be that tug of war in every live service game, which is most of them at this point, but the deception feeling of a secret algorithm trying to make the most people put the most hours in, as opposed to just hopping into a casual game and wanting to improve, being rewarded for improving, puts COD on a different level to me. The zero communication on it especially makes every other game and community more fun to be a part of, and it's a real shame. It's hard to have developer communication and the mutual respect that I feel in many other communities when, of course, we're going to constantly say, so how about that SBMM? And that's an illegal topic apparently, because the people we're talking to, I'm sure, have no control there, so the communication has to only go one way. I know feedback is monitored, and they're willing to hear respectful feedback. That's great. I'll always be a proponent of being respectful to developers. I mean, don't be a douche for no reason, especially when you're asking for things you want. Yeah, being nice might be a good idea. There are people on the other side. But there's some feedback that apparently will never be heard, because, yeah, I'm sure most of the people reading it can't do anything about it, so it would only cause a big mess to mention it. And it's sad. I feel bad for developers that obviously pour tons of time and effort and no doubt some passion into the art and mechanics in these games, because yes, even soulless COD has plenty of art. It's just overshadowed when an overarching deceptive gameplay design makes me feel like it's a soulless vessel for skins. Of course, I know people have different takes on the SPMM thing. The manipulation feeling is the bigger part to me. I'm sure a lot of people might not see it that way, and I mean, there'll always be tons of confusion. Every time I see an SBMM reply to some COD tweet, it's always the most pointless argument. Someone says something about SBMM, and then without fail there's a reply that says one of a few things, like, every game has SBMM, and then that devolves into, yeah, but not as strong as COD ever since Modern Warfare, blah blah blah, sweaty players. Still not getting at the playtime retention trick part that I really hate about it. It's not as simple as protecting some total noobs from sweaty tryhards. I have no problem with that. Or the other reply is, stop complaining, just get better. And then that devolves into, no, that's the point, dumbass, you get punished for getting better. You can't play with friends with different skills and all that. And yeah, true, I guess, but it's the same thing every time. Very frustrating. That one's gotta be bait half the time. Clearly, though, their secretive system is working for the casual majority who doesn't care or doesn't know what's going into deciding their performance. I just hate it with such a passion. Conceptually, nothing fun or interesting about it. And even if they made changes, I know I would remain suspicious and paranoid, thinking my wins and losses aren't my own. I think they need to talk about it, be open about it, for me to ever care about the result of a COD multiplayer match again. And it doesn't seem like that's gonna happen. It just feels gross compared to seemingly every other multiplayer game. Until then, the situation we're still in after 2 years is sadly a joke to me. So that is unfortunately going to stay a dark cloud over this game for me. But that is just the multiplayer. I hate when I complain this much because inevitably someone's going to say, why the hell would you even buy it? Well, I cover COD, it's kind of what I do. And that part is fun. I may not be blindly all aboard the game hype train, but I get my value from these games. I might get it just from doing our good old campaign playthrough tradition. And then with Treyarch running and continuing with zombies, that was something I definitely enjoyed in Cold War. I would hope they could start to hit their stride and put out some exciting stuff, but maybe that's overly optimistic. And then also, even with the multiplayer, I know I'll have some fun with the initial coverage, no matter what the game is like. We can do some of the usual stuff, make a spreadsheet or two, and there could very well be a game type or a progression system that manages to be fun in spite of matchmaking stupidity. Definitely possible. I can ignore the pointlessness of the gameplay if there are other fun things about the game to me to focus on. I guess the seasonal system would have to be changing at least a bit for that though. That being the other main half of my Cold War disinterest. The wanting any seasonal challenges to stay tied in with the battle pass and then to have a much larger emphasis on permanent progression in the form of classic prestige and challenges with some ultimate difficult to earn rewards. modes. But ultimately, all that aside, good game or trash game, I can tell you what it's like for anyone who's not buying it and curious. So all that is why, obviously, I would be getting the game. Even if I sound too negative, just drilling into those couple design decisions that I truly do hate that I'm still talking about, I really would love to love this game. There's potential here, like usual. I just need at least a couple things from recent times to turn around. Anyway, clearly I get enough out of it to get the games, but most people are not in this spot. And if I weren't making videos, it would probably come down to if any of my friends were into it, and yeah, it's not so much the case anymore past 2 years, although I might still be getting them for the zombies. Because, I mean, CODs now usually go on sale within the first month or two, down to like $40 right away, maybe even lower later on, since the real revenue generator is the in-game stuff and Warzone. So if you like something that COD has to offer, you could just wait for that, and you get a lot for your money, as long as you don't go spend $300 on anime bundles. I wouldn't consider it to be an expensive game for the amount of content you get, especially with the season passes long done away with. But of course it needs to be content you don't hate for it to be worth anything. Anyway, yeah, I implore you, not like I should need to, if you're not liking the direction of the recent CODs, then of course, stop buying them. At the least, definitely no need to pre-order. Wait and see how it turns out. There are tons of other promising games on the horizon, so we will continue to see how it goes. I'm looking forward to the launch experience, getting to cover it all. I think there'll be plenty to explore and do. What I don't know is how long that's going to last. Will it be immediately boring due to a copy-pasted seasonal level and challenge system? Good old Season 0, nothing to do? I think leaks do suggest Season 1 will start November 23rd, so 3 weeks of Season 0 time to get through. Will it feel bare? Or will there be more to strive for, make guides for, some actually cool game modes to get into? Will Warzone be playable again? Yeah, gonna have to see. That's all I got on Vanguard for now. Maybe if enough big news collects up again, we can discuss some more of it, like anything about war mode or progression details, or maybe around the beta time. I might wait for the PC week of it as well, then I can get a much better feel for the game. Yeah, clearly this is not a news channel though, not keeping up to date on everything as soon as it happens. Normally I think I would have rushed something out right after the Warzone event and all the initial info came out. I'm kind of glad I waited for more and to try the alpha a bit. I don't need to be giving these same thoughts too many times. Well, alright, that's all. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.